Today's episode is brought to you by DeSanto Propane. DeSanto Propane is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane. Josh here for FingerLakes1.com, and today we are learning more about a program that we've actually featured before. The Fatherhood Connection is led by Reggie Cox, and here in Seneca County, the program has seen some tangible growth, not only with local outreach to fathers, but for youth and women too. There's a lot to get to here, and for this discussion, I was joined by Tracy VanVleck and David Groben, both from Seneca County, and of course, Reggie Cox.
And I'm the Executive Director of the Fatherhood Connection. We really have 3 components with the addition of the motherhood. But I guess I'll just start off by saying that we realized that there was a need, not just only in Seneca County, but in in our nation, as it results to the role of the father, responsible fatherhood. What does that look like? And we're finding that families are really torn apart when the father's role is not included or instituted in the family dynamics. And so we believe then that by bringing the Fatherhood Connection, being my own issues with my father, being an alcoholic, and trying to break that burial and that cycle, realizing that, my experiences have really produced a resolve and a resilience as it relates to the impact that the father plays in the role of the family. And so we're so fortunate that both Tracy and Dave and different ones have really allowed us to be able to come in and run our 13-week Fatherhood Connection series that really addresses anger, communication, the boy versus the man, marital issues. And so we're finding that it's strengthening and binding fathers together from all different walks of life, rather it be probation, rather it be CPS, rather it be crime, rather it be whatever the issue is, men are able to find a bond within our groups.
Important stuff. And David, what about you?
So I work with workforce development in the Youth Bureau, and I am kind of the coordinator for these 3 programs with Reggie. I also participate in fatherhood and youth empowerment to kind of give feedback and input where needed and support the overall group.
Very cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, and I think Reggie might be the best person to lead this part of the conversation. The evolution of the Fatherhood Connection. Reggie, I think you and I first talked about this, I don't know, maybe like 2.5, 3 years ago. It feels like an absolute eternity has gone by since. But talk to us a little bit about that evolution over the years, how the Fatherhood Connection has, probably gotten better, I would assume, in terms of how you are going through this process and now with all these relationships in the community.
Yeah, well, again, we knew that there's a need for fathers as it relates to the family dynamics, rather it be the 6 areas that impact fatherlessness: crime, substance abuse, education, physical and emotional well-being, teenage pregnancy. I mean, these issues are real. And so we realized that then connecting with Tracy is really giving us an opportunity to impact so many fathers coming from probation, coming from different walks of life. And so we found that now, as we've expanded, we're realizing that there's not only a need in Seneca County, but in the surrounding counties across our nation. We're finding that there's a demand for the role of the father, a healthy father. I find that a father can be not necessarily a good husband, but he can be a good father, meaning that he may have some issues with his own problems and lust and all those other things, infidelity, which I'm not condoning, but yet he can still be a healthy father figure to provide support for that child, for the best interest of that child. So we find that now we're expanding in different ways, and that's how we become really more effective because we're dealing with the youth. We're dealing with now motherhood, getting ready to expand into those areas. So we're delighted that we have this opportunity with Seneca County being able to expand our services, and anybody in our region can really be able to join. That's huge right there, Josh.
How did before we get into the need here in Seneca County, I want to get that perspective from Tracy, of course. But when did the motherhood element start to pick up steam? When did that pop up?
Wow, where do I start, David, Tracy? we have been talking about, really expanding it because we knew that there were some women, especially during COVID. We realized that women were being able to stay connected or real close to our Zoom meetings with the fathers. And they wanted to be included in our discussions as we talked about the little boy versus the man, and how we deal with anger, and how we communicate, how we discipline our children, and the difference between discipline and punishment. And so we have different cultures. Even though we may be married, we have different upbringings and different environments and way we were raised and how we parented. And so women wanted to be included, but we were kind of like keeping them out. And we realized that there was a need for the women as well. And then Tracy could probably speak to about maybe how, it was down for a while where services weren't there available necessarily for the women. And then she popped the question, right? What do you think about this? So Tracy,
Tracy,
you want to pick it up?
Tracy, fill us in.
Fatherhood first originated, I was actually a caseworker at the time, and it was a state initiative because historically social services is all about mothers, and we wouldn't even connect with fathers. So that was a state initiative, I want to say a good probably almost 10 years ago now. And then when I became commissioner, we continued to do fatherhood. We had some stuff in the jail. And I got to say, when we hit the pandemic, what we saw is people were forced pretty much to be in the same household, which created even more problems. But we weren't aware of these problems because we weren't seeing them as well. So fatherhood has gotten very strong. We've added a Zoom component, and Reggie has been leading that for a while. At one time we were in the jail too, but because of jail reform, we've kind of pulled out of that because it's just not working. So we're really just trying to do the community, and we're concentrating a lot more on the Zoom because we have area counties that we have a transient population, and our fathers move around, or they, are close to their children, but might not be in Seneca County. So we've had discussions about, let's do Zoom for those fathers, because anybody can benefit from this program. It doesn't matter if you are seen as a productive father or not in the community. Anybody can benefit and share their story and help other fathers. Then we added our youth component because we've had raise the age legislation. Now we have other where, younger kids can't be convicted of any crimes. We can't have any charges. And we also have bail reform, which affects some of our youth and some of our adults. So, we have the whole youth component, which I think we went from like 5 youth, and now we're like a full room, and we might have to do more sessions. So that's great. And the motherhood part of it we tried to start this pre-pandemic. My staff was doing it. We had staff turnover, obviously. During the pandemic, it fizzled out. We weren't doing it at all. So I reached out to Reggie and I said, okay, I got money. What do you think about this? Do you know anybody? And of course, Reggie knew somebody. So I think, we have these people stuck in homes and they're not on the same page. But now that we're kind of back to normal, what normal we're ever going to be at again, I don't know how you can run households, whether they're together or separate, and be co-parenting children with people not getting the same message. So I approached him about doing our motherhood program, getting that back in place. And we've kind of come up with a trial to see how it goes, to see what it looks like. We're involving the mothers that we currently have, maybe court ordered, maybe not. And they're going to kind of help us develop the program. My biggest thing is go to the clients. They're the ones that are receiving the service. So we're going to do a little trial basis here and start from there and see if we can get this up and running so these families are all getting the same message.
Yeah.
So here's something that just kind of stands out to me. It seems like there's been, over the last several years now, especially among younger generations, a growing, I don't want to call it tolerance, but acceptance around the idea of getting therapy, having a therapist, really like addressing your own personal mental health struggles, whatever those might be. It sounds like this is kind of in that same column of more people. When you talk about the growth of these different programs, it sounds like they're very much similar in that there's just more of a willingness now to explore these things on a personal level. Tracy, is that kind of, does that make sense? Is that kind of what you guys are seeing with the growth?
It definitely is. And people are more comfortable doing this in groups as well. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the individuals that may go to these programs they may be or have thought about being in therapy. And now people, I think, especially our youth, we have a whole new generation of people who are willing to, work in groups and discuss their personal lives. So I think that's a very productive thing that we need to do, because that's how you make change. It's great if you're in therapy, individual therapy, and then you need to be able to discuss that with others, because people might be going through the same thing that you're going through.
Is this an intro to that? It sounds a bit like this is a very nice first step, very nice and easy, comfortable first step for a lot of folks.
Yes, absolutely. And people need support, and it's hard, especially through the pandemic. You didn't really have that support. But now people really see that they need support, I think, because of the pandemic. So I think these groups are going to be extremely well attended, especially with the Zoom aspect.
And that kind of leads me to the next point here, and feel free, all three of you, to jump in on this one. What are the expectations now moving forward? We're out of the pandemic, or I'm going to say we're close enough to being out of the pandemic, where people are kind of moving into that next phase of things, getting back to normal. We see all this growth, acceptance, tolerance of these different kind of like therapies or discussing different things. What does that mean for programs like this in terms of not only demand, but how it's going to be executed? Because I think of a county like Seneca, where you have a great demand, and oftentimes you find that you don't quite have enough boots on the ground to handle the demand. Mm-hmm. Is that an element at play here, where you guys look at the growth of programs like this over the next few years and think, oh, great, we can get through this year, but we might need to rethink some things, how we execute this in the future?
It all comes down to money. Yeah. And it really does. Anytime that you're talking about programming, it's really fiscal responsibility. And especially in New York State, we're divided by counties, and, it's somebody starting it is what it is. And I'm all about doing prevention programs. I don't want to put children in foster care. I want people to be self-sufficient. I want people to have the supports. And you have to start somewhere. And preventive programs is where you start. We all have problems that we deal with in our personal lives. I'm a single mother. There's a whole other aspect of that comes into play. And it's recognizing what they are and being willing to seek resources or help others that need resources. So I'm willing to put the money out there. I already have it in my budget. It's all approved. As it grows, maybe we coordinate with other counties, maybe, especially when if it's a Zoom aspect, it's a lot less money. And that's what it comes down to is spreading the wealth pretty much.
Okay, so let's get into kind of the 411 in terms of what's happening now, how can people get involved, and what some of the avenues look like to get involved with the programs that are happening in Seneca County.
Dave, you want to take that?
So currently we have three groups we're offering: fatherhood, motherhood, and youth empowerment. They all have referral forms that come along with them. Within our community, we try to really outreach and do as much getting our flyers out there, posting them so that people can see the groups, the links when they're available, reaching out to myself, even for just that outreach and that communication to answer questions, do follow-up, and just trying to coordinate what we can do to get people here to participate.
And it's a rolling availability situation, I would assume. It's not like there isn't a hard cutoff date for when you can get involved or sign up for something like this?
Yep, we have kids and youth and adults. Anyone joins at any time. They're able to come in and we just welcome them and get them assimilated to the rest of the class and group and move right along with their input and feedback as well.
If it's court ordered, Josh, that would be dependent on what the court order says. They might have to complete all of the program. So they might start in one, session and then finish in another.
Yeah.
So to that end, go ahead. Go ahead, Reggie.
Well, I was going to say the beauty of it is that it's open enrollment. So it's not like you got to start right at the beginning and that if you don't start, then you can't join the group. We treat it as if there was somebody who was on some kind of substance abuse or they had issues with addiction, and if they don't come while they're ready, you might miss them and they may affect somebody else's life. So we see it as an urgent matter. When a person is ready, we have to be ready to roll with them. We've seen, Josh, where a person will come to group one time and it would change their paradigm about the way they make decisions and how it's impacted. It's beautiful to see even the young women now, because it used to be just boys to men. And now having the girls that either on pins or having mental illness or having some kind of issues with either law, foster care, etc., or in school, come now to the groups and they're able to share. We did one about relationships, and oh my God, they begin to talk about the impact that just even having the dating thing, and then once they break up, grieving and loss and wanting to take their own lives and wanting to cut themselves. I mean, it opens up environment where people feel safe, where they can share and release some of those struggles and stresses so they don't have to go back out here and hurt somebody and kill somebody and do all the dangerous things that we're seeing our youth do today. This is the new way right here, Josh, without a doubt. Peer support groups is the way to take it so that they can release these things and then hopefully be able to recover and to make some better decisions moving forward.
Absolutely. And a couple little caveats here that I just want you guys to jump in on before we tidy up. We've been focusing a lot on youth, opportunities for folks who are adults. There are, I'm assuming, within the Fatherhood Connection. What are those opportunities? And also, if it is not court ordered, how would one get involved? Or if they chose to get involved with the Fatherhood Connection or these programs, how would they go about doing that if it isn't mandated by a court?
So yes, I can speak real briefly on it. So my phone number is 585-284-2445. They can call directly to me, right, or reach the Father Connection. But then they can also go on either and connect with Dave, and he kind of coordinates that through each program, whether it be the motherhood or the fatherhood or the youth program. Our mother program starts May the 18th. And so we're looking to be able to do that as a pilot, starting there and bringing in women from the groups at 10:30. So May the 18th at 10:30 a.m. to 12:30, we're going to have our motherhood pilot beginning. But our adult groups for the men don't start back in our youth until September when we roll again in school or in the fall.
Gotcha. All right.
They can also go on the Seneca County website, and the information is on there. They look under the human services. My email and phone number is on there, and I get a lot of emails. So anybody who is interested in any programs that we offer, if they send me an email, I send it to the right unit and supervisor that handles that. So Dave would get all of those for these 3 programs.
Very cool. Tracy, David, and Reggie, thank you all for your time today. Greatly appreciate it. And of course, greatly appreciate what you guys are doing in the community with this program.
Awesome. Thank you.
That'll do it for this edition of Finger Lakes Today. If you'd like to see more conversations like this one, check out the show on your favorite podcast platform or subscribe to the FingerLakes1.com YouTube channel. Have a great day, and we will see you next time.